My name is Michio, and tonight I want to take you on a journey that began not with an explosion, not with a mystery signal, not even with a scientific breakthrough, but with a simple, unassuming misunderstanding. At first, we thought we had discovered a comet. Nothing more, nothing less. We saw it as a cold, ancient wanderer drifting across the vastness of interstellar space, brushing past our solar system for a brief cosmic moment before continuing its eternal voyage into the dark. But the heavens have a sense of humor, and they rarely reveal their deepest secrets without a fight, because this object, which we now call 3I Atlas, refused to behave like any comet we had ever seen. When the Atlas Observatory in Chile first detected it in July 2025, astronomers marked it as routine, just another interstellar visitor like Oumuamua or Borisov. Its hyperbolic orbit confirmed it wasn't bound to our sun. That alone was interesting, but not shocking. The universe is vast. Occasionally, things pass through. Before we begin, I need you to do something for me. Comment your city name below and tell me, have you noticed anything unusual in the night sky recently? Strange lights, patterns that seem too deliberate to be random? But when we look closer, when we tracked its faint tail, illuminated by the solar wind, we realized something was deeply, profoundly wrong. A comet's tail always points away from the sun, pushed outward by radiation pressure. This is as fundamental as the laws of gravity itself. But 3I Atlas did something impossible. Its tail pointed directly toward the sun, like a compass needle turning the wrong way, not drifting, not wavering. It aligned with purpose, with symmetry, like a machine adjusting its antenna. And then it reversed abruptly, cleanly, like someone flipping a cosmic switch. That was the first moment many scientists felt the hairs rise on the back of their necks. Comets don't do that. Dust and ice don't form perfect geometric maneuvers. This was something else, something deliberate. So we turned our most powerful eyes toward it. And what the James Webb Space Telescope revealed in those first spectral readings shook even the most skeptical researchers. Most comets are frozen water mixed with carbon dust, methane, ammonia, and organic molecules. Dirty snowballs, as we like to say. But 3I Atlas was almost pure carbon dioxide, nearly 90% with almost no water at all. A comet without water is already strange, but one glowing from the inside radiating heat is stranger still. And then came the metallurgy. Nickel without iron. In nature, nickel and iron come bundled together. Stars fuse them together. You cannot separate them without intense industrial processing. Yet here it was, a nickel-rich composition with an iron deficit so extreme that it didn't match any natural body known to science. That was when some of us began to whisper, this isn't a rock, this is a vessel. But science demands caution. Many waited for the sun to end the debate. As 3I Atlas approached perihelion, the moment it would face the sun's blistering heat and gravitational stress, telescopes around the world prepared for the dramatic breakup that nearly all comets experience. But instead of disintegrating, it endured. The sun even fired a coronal mass ejection straight into it, a solar shotgun blast capable of stripping atmospheres from planets. And 3I Atlas didn't flinch. It absorbed the impact and continued forward, its temperature stabilizing as though wrapped in some kind of thermal shield. No comet behaves this way, but a spacecraft might. And then there was the shape, a long, narrow object with a 10.1 aspect ratio reminiscent of Oumuamua, yet with none of the chaotic tumbling we observed in that earlier visitor. 3I Atlas flew with absolute stability, controlled, balanced, as if guided by an onboard system maintaining orientation in real time. My colleague, Professor Avi Loeb, a brilliant mind and a man not prone to exaggeration, estimated the probability that we were observing an artificial object at 40%. Many criticized him for being too bold. After what I saw, I wondered if he was being too conservative, because then 3I Atlas committed its greatest violation of physics. Instead of accelerating away from the sun using the gravitational slingshot effect, a maneuver we ourselves use when sending probes deeper into space, this object slowed down. Understand what that means? There are no brakes in space. Nothing just decides to decelerate unless it has propulsion, unless it has intent. But 3I Atlas eased into a gradual, steady braking curve, like a spacecraft approaching a destination. And while it slowed, something else happened. Something subtle, faint, and absolutely unmistakable. We heard a signal. 3 pulses, a pause, 3 pulses, a pause, repeating every 247 seconds on the hydrogen line, the universal frequency used in theoretical interstellar communication for over half a century. The one frequency we predicted all civilizations would understand. Hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. Its spectral line is a cosmic North Star for communication. And now something out there was using it. Not random static, not cosmic interference, but a pattern, a rhythm, a deliberate mathematical structure. In that moment, we crossed a threshold humanity has feared and dreamed of for centuries. We were no longer asking if we were alone in the universe. We were listening to something that might already know we exist. But the scientific community wasn't unified. Half believed 3I Atlas was our first encounter with an interstellar probe, perhaps ancient, perhaps automated, perhaps the relic of a long-lost civilization. The other half clung desperately to natural explanations, convincing themselves that the universe could mimic intelligence through sheer coincidence. But as more data arrived, denial became increasingly difficult. The James Webb Telescope recorded an unnatural polarization pattern from its surface shifting in sync with the radio pulses. Telescopes in Chile observed its tail splitting into 2 luminous streams, intersecting at a perfect 90-degree angle. Geometry nature does not produce in comet tails. It looked less like gas escaping and more like a signaling system. And the world watched with growing unease as 3I Atlas drifted beyond Earth's orbital plane. On August 29th, it made a small but deliberate adjustment, aligning its trajectory precisely with the ecliptic plane of the outer planets. For 27 hours, its predicted path formed a perfect straight line that passed directly through Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. As it held that alignment, it began to glow softly, pulsing at intervals, matching the orbital resonances of our solar system as if measuring, calibrating, or harmonizing with a planetary arrangement. This was choreography. This was intention. And then came the flash, a sudden focused beam of ultraviolet light lasting exactly 2.8 seconds, powerful enough to ionize the solar wind, narrow, directed, not scattered. When we traced its path across the sky, it pointed to a region between Vega and Lyra, the origin of the famous WOW signal detected in 1977. And then, as quickly as it had begun, everything ended. The light stopped. The radio pulses vanished. 3I Atlas went dark, and the greatest mystery in the history of astronomy had only just begun. When 3I Atlas went dark, the world entered a strange kind of silence. A silence not of absence, but of anticipation, as if the universe itself had paused to take a breath. Observatories across the globe continued to track its last known coordinates, waiting for even the faintest sign of a thermal trace or reflected glint. But it was as though the object had simply evaporated into the void. NASA officially labeled it optically lost, a term that sounds harmless until you realize what it implies. An object capable of controlled braking, directional ultraviolet signaling, and intelligent alignment had intentionally vanished from our instruments. Yet the disappearance was only the beginning. Because deep within the raw telemetry of the James Webb Space Telescope, recorded in the final milliseconds before the UV flash faded, scientists uncovered something extraordinary. When the data was reconstructed, there appeared a faint interference pattern, a modulation in the light itself, subtle but intentional, as though someone had woven a message into the very fabric of that final beam. And within that modulation, we found structure, not alphabetic, not symbolic, but something far older. A set of repeating frequency ratios, the same ones we had observed in hydrogen transitions, the same harmonic intervals that match planetary orbital resonances, and most unsettling of all, the same rhythmic frequency found in Earth's natural electromagnetic heartbeat. This was no random cosmic noise. This was a fingerprint, a signature left behind like a calling card. And when analysts at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics applied wave analysis to the signal, the results stunned even the most seasoned physicists. The interference pattern was not a two-dimensional waveform. It was a three-dimensional lattice, a spiraling interwoven structure resembling the double helix of DNA. But this was not biological. It was mathematical, a geometric language, a universal constant encoded in resonance rather than symbols, a blueprint not of life, but of intention. My colleague Avi Loeb, who once cautiously proposed the idea that 3i Atlas might be artificial, described this discovery as a cosmic form of handwriting, not a message meant to be read, but a message meant to be felt, a message embedded in the vibration of energy itself. And if he was right, then whatever intelligence created this artifact didn't expect us to decipher sentences. They expected us to understand harmonies. The moment this news leaked through back channels, NASA invoked classification protocols. Files disappeared. Servers were wiped. The SETI Institute released a carefully curated statement claiming no credible evidence of artificial structure. The European Space Agency quietly shut down several public data archives for maintenance. But the truth was already out. Before the lockdown, independent researchers around the world managed to copy the waveform and feed it into quantum resonance simulators. What happened next should have been impossible. As the waveform cycled through the simulators, a harmonic echo began to grow steadily, predictably, as though the signal were interacting with space-time itself. Then, at a precise threshold, the entire simulation inverted, collapsed, and shut down, but not before producing one final output, a phrase automatically generated by an AI translation module trained to convert mathematical symmetry into linguistic meaning. The phrase was simple, terrifying, beautiful. We remember you. For a brief window, less than 2 hours, this phrase circulated through scientific bulletin boards, encrypted university channels, and private research groups. And like a spark falling into dry grass, it ignited a firestorm of debate. What did it mean? Who remembered us? Were we being addressed as a species, as a life form, or as participants in some ancient cosmic story we no longer recalled? But within a day, every mention of the phrase vanished, deleted, scrubbed, denied. Official narratives stabilized. 3i Atlas was a natural comet. Its anomalies were the result of sensor errors and miscalculations, yet no one who had seen the data could forget it, and no one could ignore what happened next. 2 months after the disappearance of the Atlas, multiple observatories began detecting faint echoes of the same harmonic signature embedded in the UV flash. But these echoes were not coming from Vega or Lyra, nor from anywhere beyond our solar system. They were coming from within it. A resonance deep in the heliosphere, weak, almost imperceptible, but undeniably a match. Some dismissed it as solar interference. Others proposed it was merely a reflection of the original signal bouncing around the magnetic fields of the sun. But a small, influential group, the same researchers who first isolated the frequency lattice, offered a more unsettling interpretation. They believed the echo was a response, not from the artifact that left us, but from something else. And as this debate simmered, humanity faced a parallel crisis, one not of science, but of belief. Because a phenomenon as profound as 3i Atlas does not exist in a vacuum. It breaches the walls between disciplines, between worldviews, between the physical and the metaphysical. Suddenly, the realm of astronomy collided with the domains of theology, philosophy, and myth. For millennia, the heavens have been our canvas for meaning. Comets were omens. Eclipses were warnings. The stars were the language of gods. And now, in the modern era, an object displaying intelligence had crossed into our system, sent a mathematical message, aligned itself with our planets, signaled toward a star most famous for a mysterious transmission, and left behind a code that says, "We remember you." To some traditional religions, this posed an existential threat. If humanity was no longer alone in the universe, what did that mean for Scripture, for divine uniqueness, for the idea that we were made in the image of God. Some leaders denounced the discovery as deception, heresy, or even a test, but others saw 3i Atlas as a validation, a sign of a creator vast enough to populate the cosmos with countless children. For Eastern traditions, the object felt less like a disruption and more like a confirmation. Buddhism, Hinduism, and other philosophies that embrace cycles of creation and reincarnation found no contradiction in the notion of advanced beings elsewhere in the universe. The arrival of 3i Atlas fit naturally within their cosmologies, where gods, devas, and enlightened entities populate an infinite multiverse of worlds. And then there were the proponents of paleo-contact, the ancient astronaut theories long dismissed by mainstream academics. For them, 3i Atlas was not a first contact. It was a return, a reminder, a check-in from whatever intelligence may have visited Earth in ancient times. If so, the message, "We remember you," carried a chilling implication. We remember what you were. We have come to see what you have become. But whether the message was warning or welcome, threat or promise, one truth had become impossible to ignore. 3i Atlas was not here to pass through. It was here to activate something, perhaps within our solar system or perhaps within ourselves. A mirror held up to humanity, reflecting our hopes, fears, and unanswered questions. And as echoes of that harmonic signature continued to pulse faintly through the heliosphere, one thing became increasingly clear. The story was not over. 3i Atlas had not left us. It had awakened us. As humanity stood divided between skepticism and belief, between fear and hope, the echoes within our solar system grew ever so slightly stronger. Not enough to draw headlines, not enough to trigger alarms, but enough for those watching carefully to sense that a new chapter was beginning. The harmonic signature, so faint it existed on the edge of instrumentation, carried the same ratios, the same resonant fingerprints embedded in the final flash emitted by 3i Atlas. Yet this time, its origin point was not a mystery drifting toward the stars. It was close, uncomfortably close, somewhere within the reaches of the heliosphere, as if an unseen tuning fork had been struck and the solar system itself was beginning to hum in response. Some scientists argued that these echoes were nothing more than solar wind interactions or magnetohydrodynamic turbulence, but the pattern repeated, predictable, rhythmic, intentional. And in laboratories around the world where earlier simulations had collapsed with the haunting phrase, "We remember you," researchers began to wonder whether the artifact had awakened something dormant, something waiting patiently for the right frequency, the right moment, the right call. But the true weight of the 3i Atlas encounter extended far beyond physics. It struck at the core of human identity because for the first time, we were confronted with a phenomenon that did not fit neatly into either scientific inquiry or religious doctrine. It was both and it was neither. A riddle woven from mathematics and mystery, logic and awe. And as debates grew, humanity found itself grappling with questions older than civilization itself. Who are we? Why are we here? Are we part of a narrative greater than our own? The very existence of an artificial interstellar probe, if that is truly what 3i Atlas was, would redefine humanity's place in the cosmos. For some, it threatened the idea of divine centrality. For others, it expanded the grandeur of creation. And for millions around the world, it ignited a hunger, a longing for connection, for meaning, for confirmation that intelligence beyond our fragile world not only exists, but acknowledges us. The message, "We remember you," echoed across cultures in thousands of interpretations. Some saw comfort, others saw warning, but in every interpretation, one truth persisted. Memory implies history. And if we were remembered, then at some point, perhaps long before written civilization, humanity may have been known. Imagine the implications. Not visitors observing us for the first time, but witnesses returning. Not explorers discovering a new world, but caretakers checking on an old one. And yet, despite the philosophical storms raging across the globe, despite the classified files and the hushed scientific debates, a deeper, more intimate transformation was taking place. For the first time in generations, humanity collectively lifted its gaze upward. The stars were no longer distant, indifferent lanterns. They were possible homes, possible origins, possible destinations. The universe felt less like an empty ocean and more like a vast network of unknown civilizations, unknown stories, unknown harmonies. Perhaps that was the true purpose of the object, not to deliver a message of conquest or salvation, not to threaten or comfort, but to awaken something within us that had been dormant for far too long. Curiosity unchained by fear, imagination unbounded by doctrine, unity born not of politics but of wonder. If 3i Atlas came to teach, then its lesson was simple. You are not alone, you are never alone, and you are part of something immeasurably greater. The disappearance of the object did not close the story, it opened it. And the faint echoes detected in the heliosphere were like whispers at the edge of a great revelation. Whether they came from a hidden companion, a dormant probe, or some deeper cosmic mechanism we have yet to imagine, they suggested that contact, true contact, was not a moment but a process, a gradual unfolding, a preparation. One day, perhaps sooner than we expect, humanity may find itself standing on the threshold of the greatest transition in its history. Not because a visitor arrives, but because we finally become capable of understanding what has been present all along. A universe saturated with intelligence, consciousness, and connection. A universe where communication is not carried by words, but by frequency, harmony, and geometry. A universe where light itself is a language. And so, as we reflect on this extraordinary event, this visitor that wasn't a comet, that wasn't an asteroid, that wasn't a natural object at all, we must consider the possibility that 3i Atlas was never meant to remain. Its purpose was to pass through, to leave behind an impression, a code, a question, and a memory. A single spark to ignite a transformation in how we see ourselves. Perhaps its final act was not a goodbye, but an invitation. An invitation to grow, to awaken, to join a conversation spanning the stars. And as long as those faint echoes continue, vibrating softly through the heliosphere like ripples in a cosmic ocean, one truth becomes harder and harder to deny. The universe is speaking, and at long last, for the first time in human history, we are listening. But the listening is only the first step. As we decode the complexities of the DNA-like resonance, we find that it contains more than just a greeting. It contains a map, not of space, but of time. It reveals that the history of the universe is far more interconnected than we ever dared to dream. Every star, every planet, every living soul is a note in a grand symphony that has been playing since the dawn of time. We are only now beginning to find our place in that music, to understand that our lives are not just random accidents, but essential parts of a beautiful, eternal design. The legacy of 3i Atlas will live on in the hearts and minds of all who were touched by its mystery. It has challenged our assumptions, expanded our horizons, and given us a new sense of purpose and belonging. We are no longer just inhabitants of a small, lonely planet. We are citizens of a vast and wondrous cosmos, connected to each other and to the universe itself in ways we are only beginning to comprehend. The echoes will continue to pulse, the light will continue to shine, and the message will continue to resonate, reminding us that we are never truly alone. The journey has just begun, and the best is yet to come. For in the end, the greatest mystery of all is not what lies beyond the stars, but what lies within ourselves. The capacity for wonder, for love, and for a connection that transcends time and space. As we move forward into this new era of discovery, let us carry the memory of 3i Atlas with us, a reminder of the infinite possibilities that await us if we only have the courage to reach for them. Let us embrace the unknown with open hearts and open minds, knowing that we are part of something truly extraordinary. The universe is waiting and the conversation has only just begun. Are we ready to take the next step, to listen more deeply, to understand more fully, and to become the people we were always meant to be? The choice is ours, and the stars are watching. Let us make them proud. Let us show them that we remember too, and that we are ready to join them in the great dance of life and light that fills the cosmos with beauty and meaning. For we are stardust, we are golden, and we are finally coming home.